Okay. Great.
Be speeding.
Okay. Let me know. Are you ready?
Time code match? Want to do a check?
Yeah, I already checked it.
Okay.
And set. Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Great.
Can you please tell me your name and your class year?
Yes, my name is Grecia Rivas. I am class of 2013. Most of my friends call me Gracie. Yeah.
And can you spell?
Grecia, Greciarivas.
Okay, perfect. So, prior to coming to Princeton, did you attend public or private school?
I went to one of the largest public schools in the country. It's called Garfield High School. So if you've seen Stand and Deliver, that was my high school in East LA.
Oh, shoot. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Was that co-ed?
Hold on one second. Let's wait for this
It's
to
the
come up.
AC. It's really loud. Hear it?
Oh, wow.
Pushing out some better. Cutting. Feeding.
Okay, so can you please tell me your name, spell it, and give me your class year?
Yes. My name is Grecia Rivas. My friends call me Gracie, and my name is spelled Greciarivas, and my class year is 2013.
Okay, perfect. Prior to coming to Princeton, did you attend public or private school?
I attended a large public high school called Garfield High School in East LA, which was the school featured in Stand and Deliver.
Okay, and how did you prepare for Princeton, both socially and intellectually?
When I was in about 6th grade,
When I'm asking you the question, answer it like in a full sentence so they know.
I see.
Because I'm getting cut out.
I see.
So
Okay.
so they have like a context of what you're talking
I
about.
see.
Okay.
Got it. Can you ask the question again?
Run it back. How did you prepare for Princeton University, both socially and intellectually?
I prepared for Princeton partially around 6th grade, 7th grade. I started attending what I call Nerd Camp, which was actually a program through Johns Hopkins University called Center for Talented Youth. And the program was meant to teach you a semester's worth of college material in 3 weeks. And so you had to take the SAT to test into this program. And that was like academically and socially one of the best previews of Princeton that I could have gotten. It was students from around the world who were considered high achieving from a diverse set of backgrounds, socially, economically, religion. And so I got to go to these summer programs every year and live with these students and be in classes with them and socialize with them all the time. So that was a really good preview of how academically rigorous Princeton was going to be. And also, East LA is 99% Latino, specifically Mexican. And so now going to these programs, I was being exposed to a wide array of ethnicities and races. And socially, other than what I did there, I was involved in extracurriculars, but a lot of that was still within my community of Garfield High School. So that was a little bit harder during the school year to prepare. And academically, I just took as many APs as I could, but if I'm being honest, a lot of them weren't that academically rigorous. And my high school just didn't have, we were on a track system, which has now been deemed unconstitutional, so it no longer exists. But just the way that we were on this track system made it so that you were limited in the classes that you could take. And the professors or the teachers that taught those classes, because you were in school for 4 months, out for 2, in for 4, out for 2. So it made it really difficult to, if you wanted to take Calculus BC, it was only offered on one track, not the one I was on. And it made it hard to study for AP exams because you have a 2-month break right before. So that was a little harder.
Okay. And why did you choose Princeton over any other university?
There were a lot of reasons. So my dream school was Stanford. Oh.
Right.
I chose Princeton for a lot of reasons. My dream school was Stanford, and I got in early and I was like, we're going to Stanford. This is a dream come true. But then I visited Princeton for the second time. I had visited my junior year on a rainy March afternoon, and I loved the campus. And then I visited again for Admitted Students Weekend And I got here, and the admissions officers knew my name. They knew who I was. There were current students who reached out to me. I already felt like a very tight-knit community. And then I got here and I fell in love with the campus more, with the people, with the programs offered. And so I committed on the spot when I was here for Admitted Students Weekend, without ever consulting with my family, which was actually kind of a problem in retrospect.
What were your expectations coming in, and did Princeton live up to those expectations?
My
Before you answer that, can you answer why was it a problem in retrospect?
Oh, to accept, yeah. So yeah, I accepted, I committed to Princeton while I was at Admitted Students Weekend, and I didn't call my parents, I didn't talk to them about it. And so in their minds, I had always wanted to go to Stanford, so I was gonna go to Stanford. And then I go on this weekend trip to Princeton, and suddenly I come back and my mom picks me up from the airport, and I was like, I'm going to Princeton, I committed, it's happening. And I realize now, well, first of all, she did not speak to me for a very long time, because she was like, how dare you, move out and leave me and leave California. We're a very tight-knit immigrant family. And so for me to be the eldest and to leave was a huge deal. And now as an adult, I realize if I ever had a child who did that, that would be a very, very big deal, right? Like I would want them to talk to me about it and to have a conversation. But I don't know, I guess I thought I was independent, so I just did it myself. Yeah.
Okay. So what were your expectations coming in, and did Princeton live up to those expectations?
My expectations for Princeton were that I would get a world-class education, that I would be around a lot of diversity, at least in comparison to where I was coming from and what I was used to. I thought, I don't really know that I had a lot of expectations in terms of how I would do. I just was kind of hoping that I would do well and banking on the fact that I had done well K through 12. When I got here, the most shocking part for me was how academically rigorous it was in comparison to the schools that I had attended previously, especially my high school. I was far away from home for the first time for a prolonged period of time. I remember not having hot Cheetos being sold on the East Coast at the time, and for me that was huge. I was like, I need hot Cheetos, I need a taste of home, and that was difficult. I think socially, it lived up to my expectations. I made a lot of friends. I joined a lot of extracurriculars. I did the pre-orientation camping trip, so I got to meet a lot of my classmates beforehand. And I was happy about that. But academically, it was a lot more rigorous than I could have ever expected. And partially, I came in pre-med. I'm now a lawyer, so really, really pivoted. And I actually left pre-med halfway through Princeton because I realized that, first of all, when I got to orientation, the counselor that I was assigned was a professor in the comparative literature department. So she did not know about medical school or the requirements. And the advice that she gave me is entirely different from the advice that I would have given myself nowadays. I would tell someone, okay, you say you want to go to medical school, don't commit to pre-med right now. You can always do a post-bac. Instead, explore and take at least a year to just try things out. And instead, she was like, okay, you say you want to go to med school. Here are the 10 classes you need to take your freshman year. And so I stuck to that and I committed to that. But I was really unhappy. I wasn't doing well academically. And I realized it wasn't what I ultimately wanted to do. So in that sense, I didn't feel like the counseling was the best that I could have gotten. But that being said, once I did struggle academically and needed help, my residential college was there for me. I got tutors from the university. The support was there. If I needed extensions on work, the support was there. In that sense, it far exceeded my expectations in terms of them getting me in and out the door in 4 years.
Do you wanna? How was that when the?
I didn't hear
You
it.
didn't hear it? Okay.
What did you hear?
There was like a car or truck that drove by.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, and did you feel that you fit in when you arrived? And can you please explain?
Yeah. It's interesting. I felt at different points that I fit in, and then at other points I felt that I didn't. And so.
Can you say that again? I bumped the camera.
Okay, no worries. There were different points during my time at Princeton that I felt I really fit in, and other points when I felt that I didn't. And when I first got here, I just arrived entirely unprepared for the outdoor action trip. I mean, I brought hiking boots and some outfits, and that was about it. Like, I was not prepared for all of the other things that I was supposed to bring. I don't know. I think I was in denial about leaving home, and so I was already unprepared for that. But at least during that beginning time when everyone's really getting to know each other and everyone's really bonding, I did feel like I felt like I fit into the campus. I think once things started to get very academically challenging, then I was like, okay, do I really belong here? Am I really as smart as everybody else who, a lot of these people went to private school. They went to a prep school. They're the Deerfields and the Choates and the whatevers of the world. And I hadn't had that. So I started second guessing, not necessarily my innate abilities, but just whether or not I had the foundational building blocks to really catch up academically. Socially, I did feel for the most part that I fit into the campus. I think I found friends that really accepted me for who I was. Some of them are still my best friends today, and some of them I met through extracurriculars or classes or my eating club. And I mean, it was very important for me to, for example, join an eating club and be part of what's considered sort of the quintessential Princeton experience, being fully immersed in a lot of the things that are a tradition on campus. Because, I don't know, there was a part of me that was like, yeah, you're from East LA and you're here on a full ride, but, you deserve to have these experiences. So, yeah.
Okay. And when you lived in Princeton, when you attended Princeton, what was your major? And were there other Latinos in your major?
That's a good question. Okay, so when I attended Princeton, my major was originally psychology. I ultimately majored in comparative literature. And I believe there were 2 or 3 of us my year who were at least Latinos that I knew of or were actively involved. I don't know if there was anyone else who was Latino, but wasn't as open about it. And our graduating class for comp lit, I want to say it was maybe 15. So we were a pretty small comp lit class. And I think ultimately one of us took a year off. And so 2 of us ended up graduating with the class. What was the other question?
If there were other Latino students in your major, which you answered.
Yeah.
Did you take any courses that touched up on any Latino-related subjects?
Yes.
Throughout?
Yeah, so I took courses that touched on Latino-related subjects. So I did get a certificate. I got 2 certificates, one in African American Studies and one in Latin American Studies. And I also took courses in the, I forget what the program is called, because there's the Latin American Studies, and then I think there's a Latino Studies program, which I don't know if it's still called that today. But most of my classes, because I was comp lit, and at that point I knew I wanted to go to law school, a lot of my classes touched on just policy and legal issues impacting not only minority communities, but also Latin America overall, and the history of Latin America and U.S.'s involvement in all of that.
Do you think your professors had any different reactions because you're a Latino, because you're a female, or just minorities in general at Princeton?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one.
Did you ever feel anything different?
I think I guess if I could point to one difference that it was noticeable between professors interacting with Latino students versus non, was that, I mean, sometimes, like, my name for a lot of people is hard who don't speak Spanish, right? Grecia, and they're like, oh, I can't roll that R. But also a lot of my friends call me Gracie, so I really don't mind. I always give people the option. I do think I found really great allies and mentors in professors who were specifically Latinas. Like, one of my recommenders for law school was one of my comp lit professors who's from Uruguay. And I took several classes with her, one of which was a 3-person seminar. And so I felt like she was someone I could really go to and talk to. One of our other professors, she was a young Latina who, was just trying to get tenure here, and she would be, it was funny. There was one class where she talked about, I'm a young professor, so I can't really say no to people. But when the university, kind of ignores me, but then they want to come in and take pictures of my class because they know it's one of the most diverse on campus, she's like, then I just ignore their emails, right? Because for her, she was like, they can't just come in here and sort of use you guys as this picture of perfection when that's not actually what the university is. So she was a great mentor. She was somebody that I knew I could be really transparent with and go to even when I was having a hard time. And yeah.
Okay. What was your thesis topic, and how did you...
You got PTSD. And how did I what?
And how did you, find that experience?
Yeah. So my thesis was on basically there's a movie that a lot of people have watched about Brazil called City of God. But it was first an ethnography. And so mine was a comparison of racial portrayals between the ethnography and the movie, because in Brazil, there is a long history of sort of whitewashing the past. And there have been attempts before at like erasing race, even though Brazil is one of the countries that actually has the most races in the world. And they actually were, I think, last in the world to get rid of slavery other than the US. It's insane. So I wrote it about that. And it was partially because I had to do something that was related to race, something that was related to Latin America, and something that was related to literature and a language that wasn't English. So that's because I had to fulfill requirements for for my comparative literature major, but also for my certificates. And so I just came up with that topic.
Awesome. And at Princeton, what was your social life like?
Oh yeah.
Get down to the juice.
You would have been friends on campus. I already know.
I like to think I had a very robust social life on campus. Okay. I like to think I had a really robust social life on campus. I worked for a lot of semesters. For example, I worked with the Office of the Dean of Undergraduate Students. I also, helped put on commencement. I helped during reunions. I was a tour guide for a hot second. I also helped admissions call admitted students and welcome admitted students to campus. Aside from that, I joined a lot of the Latino orgs. So I was in Chicano Caucus. I went to the Acción Latina events. I was in Ballet Folklorico for all 4 years. Aside from that, I led a mentorship program through the Princeton University Mentoring Program. And then, on the weekends, I like to go out, and sometimes that was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I did feel like I had a lot of fun socially. Like I was, or my friends and I would decide to do spontaneous trips. Like one year in January, we were like, well, we're going to be done with finals soon. We should just there are cheap tickets to Ireland. We should go. And so we just booked tickets to Ireland and went.
So, would you say that your closest friends were people with a similar background than you?
I would say that a lot of my friends are people with a similar background. So a lot of them I met through Folklorico, and just having to be in practice as often as we were and seeing each other so much and having common ground from our families and our backgrounds, we did really, really bond. So I would say the majority of my closest friends from Princeton do have a similar ethnic, racial, or cultural background.
Okay. And how did Princeton affect your subsequent life and career?
Oh my gosh.
Today?
Yeah. Princeton really positively impacted my current career, my past career as well. So after, I guess I'll backtrack. When I first got admitted to Princeton, I went to the admitted students event in LA. It was in Brentwood at a really nice house. And Marcia Gonzalez Kimbrough, who is one of my mentors, was there. And I kept in touch with her for a really long time. And she ultimately gave me my first legal internship when I was in law school. And then my Princeton interviewer, Fernando Rocha, is now a federal judge, but before that, he was a partner at a large firm, and his wife runs the criminal grand jury for LA County. So after my freshman year, when I decided I no longer wanted to go to med school, I had no idea what a lawyer partner was, like a law firm partner. Now in retrospect, now as a lawyer, I'm like, wow, that was really ballsy of me. But at the time, I remember emailing Fernando, and I was like, hey, remember me? You interviewed me for Princeton. I want to go to law school. You're a lawyer. Does your firm have internships? And he was like, we only take law students, but my wife would be happy to give you an internship. And so I interned with her for 2 summers. And then because of that, I got to work for a judge in New York who's also a Princeton alum. And she funds a stipend through the PICS program. So it's Princeton Internships in Civic Service. And normally this is a role that's reserved for law students. So I was like the summer intern for this judge as an incoming senior in college. And then in law school, one of my classmates did the same thing as a law student with the same judge. So the fact that I had those experiences because of Princeton was huge. And she, funded this stipend, so I got to live in New York for free, didn't have to worry about money. So then, fast forward to I graduate, I feel burnt out from college. And so I decided that I didn't want to go back to school immediately, and I ended up doing Teach for America. And I got to teach in Southeast LA, and I taught kinder and first grade for 4 years. But the funny thing is, one of my good friends from Princeton was already teaching at this school. And so I got an interview there. And of course, they reached out to her and they were like, hey, what do you know about Grecia? And so she said good things. And I had this interview. Things went well. I ended up working there for 4 years. And then, eventually pivoted to law school. But I like to tell people that every job that I've gotten had some Princeton connection. Even after I graduated from law school, my first job was at a large firm in LA. And I had gotten the summer associate position there, which eventually gave me my full-time offer because someone from Joe Ramirez, class of 07, just emailed me one day and he was like, hey, I know a Latino lawyer in downtown LA at a big firm. You guys are both brown. You should talk to each other. And I was like, great. And so I emailed him. It turns out he was the hiring partner at this firm. And because I was persistent, I had no idea he was the hiring partner. I really should Google things more often. But because I was persistent in wanting to meet with him, when he saw my resume come in through my school's summer interview program, he was like, oh, I've seen this name. And, she comes recommended by Joe. And so, he met with me off the books before anyone else from my school was ever interviewed. And I was the first person to get an offer and eventually got a full-time job there. It's crazy to me how the Princeton connection works every time. And a lot of it is because alumni are just so willing to give back. When I joined my new firm, I recently moved from LA to San Diego, so I joined a new firm. And as soon as I joined, the Princeton alums in the Boston and DC offices were like, hey, you went to Princeton. I was class of 65. Like, I'm so happy to, see more Princetonians here, especially women. Like, a lot of these men didn't have co-education when they were here. So they were really excited, and they're always reaching out. Someone who's a project analyst at my firm in Boston, he's a recent grad, he reached out and he was like, so happy to have another Tiger on board. I think just like there is really a sense of community, and of like, if there's already a Princeton grad in there, you have a better shot because we really love the community. We have this, despite me being from potentially a different racial or ethnic or cultural or socioeconomic background, we have this common connection that ultimately makes it so that we want to lift each other up.
Okay.
Sorry, that was really long.
This is your closing.
Okay. Oh.
What would Grecia today tell 18-year-old Grecia?
Oh, man.
Like, what advice would you give her?
Invest in real estate. Do it early. Advice that there's a lot of advice that I would give to my 18-year-old self. One is break up with your high school boyfriend before going to college. Don't do it. Don't do it, girl. It's not worth it. And I think I guess I would tell myself it's going to be fine. There were like so many times during Princeton where I was like really doubting myself, really doubting. I mean, it's a hard place to be. It's an amazing place to be. But it's also hard because you're stressed. You have to write 2 junior theses and a senior thesis, and a lot of this is stuff that no one has ever asked you to do. No one has ever said, come up with a brand new thought. So I would say, you've got it. It's going to be fine. It's all going to work out. And yeah, invest in real estate early. Listen to your parents on that one.
Okay, and then we'll do like another one.
Okay.
Just, in case. What did you love most about Princeton University?
Oh my gosh. I guess 2 things I loved most about Princeton. 3? I don't know. Am I allowed to give 3 things? I loved how much money there is. So I knew coming in that it was the school that had the most money per capita to invest in its students. And so there's a saying that we have here. It's basically, if you want it, there's money somewhere for it. And so I loved that I was able to go to Brazil so I could write my senior thesis. I didn't have to. I was writing about an ethnography and a film that I could watch and read. But, the comparative literature department and the Latin American studies departments were like, yeah, you should go to Brazil. You should have that experience. So I love just the resources that are available for students. And it's funny, one of the students from my high school was just admitted. He's the first person from my high school that's gotten admitted since I was admitted. And I got to interview him. And so I tell him, I'm like, if you want it, there's money for it. You should never have to pay for these things. The resources are there, and the world is your oyster. You can have all the research you want. You can have the funding that you want. Princeton's going to support you. So I would say funding, never having to worry about money here is, I mean, to be able to graduate debt-free and then be able to go to law school because of that, and be able to go into debt for law school because I didn't have any debt from undergrad is amazing. Second, I would say the people. Like, I do really love the people, and I do think this is where I met some of the smartest, kindest, best people I've ever met. And every time I meet a Princeton alum, I'm just like, okay, there's something that we have in common that, I don't know, just like bonds us, and I appreciate that. And then third is reunions. I love reunions. I think it's like Disneyland for Princeton alumni, and I will come back as much as possible. Yay!
Hold on. There's a couple of questions that were missed that I think we need to make sure we get these questions.
Okay.
All right. First question is, what was your relationship between Latin students and eating clubs, and how did you feel about eating clubs?
Yeah. When I was here, the relationship between eating clubs and the Latino community, I think, was getting better than it had been before. I knew people who were in all of the eating, like there were Latinos in all of the eating clubs basically at that point. Whether it was a bicker club or a sign-in club. And at least at that time, there was a huge sort of push from some of the undergrads to join CAP and make CAP, which is a bicker club, which is traditionally more exclusive or just like a little more difficult to get into. And there was really a push for them to join CAP, and I was really proud of them for being able to do that.
Repeat that.
Yeah.
So it's really push for them?
Join CAP.
Wait, what was I saying?
There was a really push for them to join.
Yes. So yeah, there was a push for students to join CAP, mostly because a few of them had made it in, and they were encouraging their friends to make it in too. And I was really proud of them for doing that. I think when I got to campus, I originally was told there's no Greek life at Princeton. Like, there are no fraternities and no sororities, which was a lie. It's just that they're not sanctioned by the university and they don't have a huge place on campus. But I did realize that some of the sororities and fraternities were ultimately feeders into some of the eating clubs as well. And so for some people, it was a sports team. Some, it was an extracurricular, like a dance team. And for others, it was a fraternity or a sorority. And so, you know, to some extent, it's like maybe if I had known those things, I would have tried out for those things earlier. And then I ended up in Cloister, which I loved. And that's a sign-in club with some of my really good friends, and they had great food. So I was happy about that. But at the same time, I think there was definitely a divide between like the bicker and the sign-in clubs. And so when Latino students started joining bicker clubs and they were being chosen by current members, that was a big deal. And I was happy that they were able to sort of pave that way for themselves and then the classes to come.
When you were in college, was there any specific major external events that rocked the campus or changed your perspective while you were here? Example could be a financial dip or war or even a presidency. Was there something that outside of campus that was sort of something that you held on to during your time here that was part of the current event circle?
Like impacted the whole campus?
Yeah.
I don't think so. It was pretty tame. So it's pre-Trump, so it was like a chill 4 years in comparison.
Yeah, you actually.
So like what's been happening?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all relative, right? So like my perspective on it now is probably different than it would have been then.
Right. How about this one? Do you remember anything distinctive about how Latinos, women, folks in general participated in lectures and precepts, sat together, vocal, shy? Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think overall, when I looked at women or Latino students or, you know, Latinas speaking in class or participating in lecture, I personally felt like I could speak up more in the classes where it was either my major, so I felt more comfortable with the material, or it was with a professor that I felt really comfortable with, such as some of the Latina women who I considered like mentors as professors when I was here. I don't recall a lot of us overlapping in classes often, unless it was for some of the Latin American Studies program courses. Even in my African American Studies courses, I didn't have a lot of other Latino students in those courses. I think I just personally felt like I spoke up more, where I felt more engaged and felt like the material was more relevant to issues that I really cared about, like social justice or, you know, reproductive rights, things like that. But I personally didn't feel like it was based on whether or not I was a Latina, but it was more based on, did I really like this class? And it was a smaller class where I felt like I could have an opinion and we would all be able to talk about it, as opposed to a big lecture where it didn't matter as much.
Nice. Give me 1 sec.
You start partying yet since you've been back?
Yesterday a little bit, but it was kind of dead yesterday. Yeah. Today's the day.
Friday.
Yeah, today's the day. I know.
Juan was saying it's going till like 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Oh, last night it was bad. It was like there were no Ubers, so we didn't get back till like 4. Just no Ubers in the area.
This area?
Yeah. It was too busy. It said like surge prices were crazy, and then it was really busy apparently. So no
The worst
Ubers.
is
Yeah, I think we're all set.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
All right.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.